So I think that there is a difference between those that are interested in business and entrepreneurship and those that are not. And I think the big difference is that the people that are interested in business and entrepreneurship, they view the world as if that they can actually impact it and that they can be a leader in that particular world. And they might sort of suggest and think that the world is kind of an imperfect thing, and we can keep working at it and turn it into something that is better in the next few years than it is today. And I think about all of the people that sort of stick their neck out and they create something or they do something, and then everybody else sits and laughs, right? They sort of say, "Oh, that thing is going to be a big flop." Um, I think about people that are doing unique things, right? So, um, you know, like it or not, I am not a big fan of the politics that Elon Musk has done with Twitter and all of that kind of stuff, and the sort of not niceness that it has created. But, like it or not, he's actually doing something. He's actually getting out there and responding to the world, right? And I think about everybody that is out there, right? Like, yes, you might having some wealth behind you actually makes a difference, right? Like I get that. I am completely sympathetic to that view. But does it, right? Like, does it really? If you look at most people around the world and, them getting to the point of where they're making a large impact, right? That they just grinded away and they had that unfettered belief. The vast majority of people in this world, yes, there are outliers that had money, and yes, those outliers do make them sort of better off in the long run, that they will get to a higher level. But the vast majority of the people in this world, no matter where you are and what sort of suppressive regime that you're actually in, the ones that actually do get up and they stick their neck out and they believe that they can make a positive change, they believe that they can get someplace, they do make a positive change and they do get someplace, right? Like they actually make that little change. And in their world, it might be enormous what they've done, right? It might be absolutely enormous. Maybe they stuck their neck out and they said, enough's enough. My neighborhood, my street is dirty every day, and they stuck their neck out and they cleaned it up every day or every week, right? They made a difference. They actually did change the world, right? And if you did that repeatedly and you were the one that actually stuck your neck out and you cleaned it up every single week for 10 years, don't you think that that would make a positive difference? And hopefully impact how people feel about that particular street and maybe change it around. I mean, I think about this, right? Like, what is it that sort of changes people in terms of them recognizing that the world is full of opportunities? You can either say, "Hey, that's a that's a crappy street, right? That's falling apart. That there's a lot of garbage and all this kind of stuff that's on there," and say, "Oh man, that's so problematic." Or you say, all right, giddy up. Let's go. Let's actually make a difference here. Let's start picking things up. And they do that every week for a decade, 2 decades. And they're like, man, I didn't really do anything. Really? Do you think that that is the case? I think about that all the time, right? As if you actually step up and you stick your neck out and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this around, rather than sitting back and thinking that the world is going to happen to me and there's all these problems and all this kind of stuff. I can actually put a little bit of a positive influence here. I can move the needle and I can move it just a little bit. Yes, it's probably just a little bit, but I can move the needle, right? I can actually make that positive difference, right? I could take care of myself, and I can maybe start helping other people once I take care of myself and I realize that I am on stable ground. You know, I have come to believe that there's no other thing that's out there other than somebody just like people just just deciding that they're going to do it, and they actually do it, and they make this positive change, and they change the world, right? That's essentially all it is, right? What triggers that positive change where somebody says, I'm going to do this? I don't know. Sometimes it's like the world just gets so crappy, or you just look at it and you're like, I'm just tired of this, right? Or sometimes you're like, I'm always going to be do this. I'm really optimistic. I'm going to sort of pursue this and really make this positive difference in this world. Whatever it is, right? Once people start sort of viewing the world as opportunities and viewing the world that they can change things, that their effort matters in the long run, that they do make a positive influence, all of that kind of stuff, right? Like once you start believing that, all of a sudden things start changing in your life, um, and you start doing it. That's the thing, right? Like that's the frustrating thing, is that I see that it's just requires you to just believe a little bit. Like Disney was right. Walt Disney was absolutely right, right? You just have to believe a little bit. Right? It's like the pixie dust thing, right? Like I can't remember her name, but where they're all chanting, I believe, I do believe. That's essentially it, right? Once you believe that you actually get this thing started, then people believe, and it does get started. But it only happens once you believe that that can actually happen. And if there's a few people that are just doubting and they're not like full force in this thing, it's not going to happen. And the challenge, the thing is, we can view our world in all sorts of problems, right? That there's lots of crappiness. I get it, right? There is a lot of crappiness that's out there. There's this crazy weird political thing that's happening in the United States that I don't really understand. But other than that, you know, if you step back and you say, wait a minute, I can make a positive difference. I don't have to be part of that conversation. I can I can get people to believe in themselves. I can get people to take this step forward, regardless of what's going on, and do something. And all of a sudden, you could do something, and it's probably going to be really cool. But it's not going to happen until you actually believe that it's going to happen.